visionaries, and welcome to part 2 of Doreen Virtue and WTF Happened. In this video, we're going to be looking at her human design chart. So grab your chart, follow along, and I'll see you on the inside. Guys, are you ready to dive into Doreen Virtue's chart? So the reason why this is so interesting is because she has had quite a powerful journey, and her transition from Hay House author, channeler, guide, spiritual teacher to born again preacher of all things devil and Satan has been very extreme for people. And in part 1, if you haven't seen it, we go through the idea of spiral dynamics and that perhaps she may have been at a little bit of a lower frequency than we would have expected in her developmental stages of psychology, and that she actually was evolving up to blue as opposed to devolving, which a lot of people have said when they look at her behavior. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into her chart, and the reason I'm going so deep into this is because it's such a powerful teacher to learn about how we operate and why, especially when we're talking about consciousness, we're talking about evolution, we're talking about spiritual growth, we're talking about who we are. All of these things are really important to contemplate. And so what spiral dynamic does is it shows us where we might be on the spiral of evolution in psychology. And what human design is going to do is show where she may have been susceptible, where her shadows were, where she may have been susceptible to the types of behavior that she is now exhibiting. And why it's different is that human design shows us what might be possible, the potentialities. It shows us where people have gifts, where they have potential shadows, where they may fall into certain areas of conditioning, but it doesn't show you exactly how evolved someone is. And that's why spiral dynamics was a really important addition. So if you don't know, most of my work is based in human design system, also spiritual psychology and business tools, and we work in all of these areas to help people unleash who they are and their genius. And you'd be surprised, it's very hard to understand who we are in this complex world. And so we're going to look at Doreen Virtue's human design chart. It's so fascinating. I can't wait to dive into the intel with you. So hold on, everyone. This is going to be a fascinating ride. Pull out your human design chart. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you're new to this, in the notes below, I will have a link for you to get your human design chart if you want to follow along. And also I'll put a couple of videos so you can understand the basics so we can have a conversation. Now, I know a lot of you may not know anything about human design. I'm going to try and break it down very simply so we can all grasp onto some of these concepts. So whether you're advanced in human design or whether you don't know anything about it, I'm going to try and use language that we can all relate to and see if we can understand this mystery on a deeper level. So let's go ahead and dive in. So in the first video, I went through her spiral dynamics. If you didn't see that, I'll put a link to part 1 below as well. So today we're going to be talking about her human design chart. So the reason why it's so important to look at someone's human design chart in situations like this is to help us understand who we are and how we operate. And looking at Doreen Virtue is a wonderful guide to show us how human design affects, how the aura mechanics affect our lives. It is a super powerful and interesting study and really helps us understand our own behavior and other people's behaviors. So one of the things that you'll notice on this human design chart is that there are these triangles, squares, and diamonds, and these types of shapes in this graph that looks like a person, right? And you've got the face here. Now, these are called centers in human design, and they're similar to the energy centers people might refer to as chakras, although human design does refer to them a little bit differently. But if you know anything about the chakra system, then you know that at the top it's going to be the head, the crown, the throat, and then you're going to come down the heart, and you're going to have the solar plexus, and you're going to have the root. So they're very similar. However, human design says that we evolved to a 9-center being in the late 1700s, and that the 7-center chakra system is a little excuse me, it's a little outdated. One of the first things we notice in Doreen Virtue's chart is you can see two things that really pop out. And one is at the top of her crown, her head is completely undefined. It's open. There's not a single hanging gate. It's white, which that means that it's undefined, and there's not a single hanging gate. For those of you who know human design, there's no markings, these little half lines that come off of the head. So that's very significant. And we have that also here in the identity center. And I'm going to explain a little bit about what that means and why it's so relevant to this situation. So an undefined open head like this might mean that someone has the ability to really channel and open up to higher frequencies, higher thoughts, new thought. However, because there are no gates or channels in human design, what this means is that they have absolutely no way to filter the information. They don't really understand whether it's theirs or someone else's or where it's coming from. So it can be totally overwhelming. And people with this kind of configuration oftentimes will abdicate their thoughts to someone else, to a religion, to a cult, to a husband, because it's so overwhelming. They don't know what to think. They don't know how to sort through all the thoughts. So they allow someone else to think for them. Here, you go ahead and think for me, because I can't make sense of all of this. And it can be overwhelming, it can be confusing. And the gift here is that you can also really channel all different kinds of awakened intel. Now, in my last video, I said that I do believe that what she was channeling was very high frequency, but she just didn't have the ability to process it or understand it. And part of the reason is because of her conditioning. Now, she was conditioned in a Christian Science background. And what this means is that her family and their beliefs were ingrained into her identity, and that is what she grew up believing. But when she moved into this channel and had these awakenings and began communicating with angels and moved into this higher level of consciousness, or moved into what she's calling the new age, but it's more of a spiritual realm. In that spiritual realm, there's a distaste for religion. And she couldn't really balance that out within her, because when you have a completely open identity center here, what that means is that you need to be loved. You need to be loved and accepted. And so in the spiritual community, that religion was not going to ever be fully accepted, because most people have evolved out of blue in that realm. Most people are not really abiding by the organized religions, and they found their own connection to God, and they found their own way to really self-actualize. So here with this completely, so if you'll notice, the identity center, we call this the G center, and it has this similar thing to her head where it's completely open. There's not a single hanging gate here. Okay, now this is pretty rare. When you have a undefined G center, the issues you're dealing with are love and direction. Who's gonna love me? Where can I get love? Who am I? What am I here to do? And these are the struggles of the G center. As long as they're willing to struggle and to look for who they are, these people have to really get comfortable with not knowing who they are, with not needing love. Now, clearly, Doreen Virtue has not had her clarity on this, and she did not, have to really analyze herself with this. But she has been looking for love in all the wrong places. She's already on her 5th husband. Okay, now the other thing that this open G will do is it will look for its identity and its direction and love based on other people, meaning that she will take on, she will absorb and amplify the identity of the people that she's with. So in other words, if she walks into a bar, she's gonna look like someone who's been in that bar, and she's going to fit right in, and she's going to be able to take on their qualities, their mannerisms, and she's going to feel like she's a bar fly. And if she were to go into the spiritual arena, she would fit right in, and she would be able to take that on. And this is the gift of the undefined center. However, if you don't know about this intel, and you don't know that this is part of your shadow, and you don't know who you are, then it's a very scary thing to be in these environments and not understand who you are, and be looking for people to approve and to love you. And so she was never able to release her conditioning as a child, and never able to get confirmation of the Christianity in the spiritual community that she was in. And so her 5th husband, from what I understand, had a lot to do with this directional change. And if she is in his aura long enough, she's going to take on his beliefs, and eventually she will abdicate her identity and her thoughts to her husband for love and for recognition. Now, when she immediately enters into a church, she is able to channel Jesus, because she's completely open the head. She's completely available for that level of insight. And yet, if she is moving into a very dogmatic religious church, she's going to take on all of their beliefs, all of their identities, and all of their systems as her own, and think it's her. So a lot of people I was talking to said that it's not the same person, that it's a completely different person. Well, the truth is the identity center is absorbing the people they are with, and they look completely different. So we also see this in a lot of actors who are open G center. They take on the characteristics of the people that they're playing. We see this in one of the big jokes in the human design community is all of the pictures of Brad Pitt with all of his girlfriends. He takes on the entire identity of each one of those girlfriends. He looks exactly like Angelina Jolie. He wears his hair the same way when he's with her. He looks like Jennifer Aniston when he's with her. He looked like Gwyneth Paltrow when he was with her. And he's able to morph into the identity of the people that he's with. And that's a great gift for an actor. However, here we see the issue that she's rationalizing with her gate 24, and rationalizing her behavior because she's not knowing why she's given up her identity, and why she's abdicated all of her beliefs to the people that are around her. And so this is very telling, people. I mean, the fact that she has no identity, she does not know who she is, and she's constantly searching. This can be a very scary and very intense monkey on someone's back when they have this undefined G center. The other thing that is really interesting about her chart is that she has 3 tribal circuits. That means that she is 75% tribal. That means that she has to follow the tribal rule. It's about sacrificing the self for the tribe. It's about believing in the tribe's identity and taking on their beliefs, and releasing in any individual thought for the rule of the tribe. She has one collective channel, transitoriness, but this is this 3536, this one over here. And what's so interesting about this is that she's also a split definition. And so her communication to her emotions are completely unable to communicate to the sacral. So in other words, the emotions, when they're unchecked and they are out of control, will manifest, will communicate things without really checking in to see if it's correct for her through her sacral. And so, because first, as a manifesting generator, she needs to respond, and then she needs to wait, and then she needs to take action. But you see, the 35 and the 36 is incredibly impulsive, and they will leap into something out of feeling that they've been there, done that, and they're ready to make life changes. And so they will leap into other lifestyles without waiting to see if it's correct. And it causes extreme chaos for people that do not understand how this channel works. And so the 35-36 can be incredibly intense, impulsive, leaping into things. And if you don't understand that you're emotional and that the emotional being does have these waves and does ride up and does ride down, and you're supposed to ride out that wave completely before taking any action, then you can find yourself leaping into a lot of situations that are not correct for you. One more thing I will add is that she learns from shock. And so she really learns the hard way oftentimes, and shock can be incredibly intense. And I think that this is one of the things that she is now learning. This is a pretty shocking experience for her. Even though she is actively moving forward on letting go of her property and her books and everything that she created, it's still quite a shock. And I'm sure even for her, it was hard to do. And I'm sure her new life and her new identity is intense and shocking. So that is how she learned. She is built for shock with that gate 51. And so that is part of how her awakening and part of how she learns. So another thing that's interesting when we're talking about shock, the shock is found in her Mercury, the gate 51 in the role model, line 6, which basically is like the third part of her life is shocking communication. And it did shock us. It shocked all of us in the conscious community. And I think also really learning how to live as a role model is something she's learning right now. It did shock all of us. And I think we're learning a lot from watching her go through her shadow aspects and talk about it as though she now knows the way and has all of the answers. I think it's really important for us to understand it. Otherwise, it's incredibly destabilizing and confusing. The good news, I think, in this day and age is that we have more systems, we have higher technology available through study, through all of these intense systems that have been tested and studied by genius level philosophers and psychologists and people that are willing to do this work around human psychology, human evolution, and how people are designed to operate and live their best lives. These are high level technologies that are available for us now to really understand. And human design was birthed around 1987, so it's fairly new as a system, but you can think of it as an upgrade. It's an upgrade to your iPhone system software so that you can understand who you are. You can have a GPS system for operating on this planet, and it shows us things that we wouldn't normally get to observe if we didn't have this new technology to understand ourselves and see how people's shadows operate. And so looking at these two systems, the spiral dynamics and human design, it really helps us understand where people get stuck and how to operate correctly, how to understand yourself, and to know there are tools that can help you move through the complexities on this planet, the confusions on this planet, and all of the traps that we go through. And knowing this about yourself and knowing this about other people is incredibly insightful. And what I love about living in 2020 is that we have information if we're willing to look inside and we're willing to ask the right questions, and you're willing to lay down the ego so you can see where I've made a mistake, where I've been conditioned. You can really understand yourself and awaken genius level insights about who you are, why you're on the planet, what you're here to do, and how you can totally operate as your unique self, as you were born to operate. And so these systems are an incredible gift that are available to us now, living in this time in history. And so when you have this much tribal authority in your chart, you really do need to be beloved by the tribe that you're in. And if her conditioning was Christianity and she's looking for love in all the wrong places, she's not getting that confirmation in the spiritual community, you can see why she was susceptible, especially because she really wasn't that evolved in the first place. I think that she was just not consciously aware. I think she had the gift to channel, but I think she had so much success that she didn't really do a lot of self-actualizing or deconditioning, as you call it in human design, so that she could really live who she truly is. And so it's a very interesting. She has absolutely zero individual. She has individual gates, but she does not have any individual channels, the circuitry for the individual, which means that she doesn't really know how to fight for herself. She doesn't really know how to stand up against the tribe. And you'll see that in the spiral dynamics. You really need that power to move to the next level. To break free from the tribe, you have to learn how to think for yourself. And for Doreen Virtue, she would really need to understand this deconditioning process, deconditioning the thoughts that are not hers, and deconditioning the identity identity that she has taken on, both in the spiritual community and in the religious community. And that's a huge undertaking. You know, not many people are willing to take on that level of self-actualization or self-awareness. It can be a pretty bitter pill to swallow to see these things and to go through this stuff. So with great love and great compassion, I'm offering this insight for all of us to learn where shadows exist in our charts, where we may be susceptible to outside influences, where we may be taking on things that are not ours. So one of the most important things we do in human design is this process called deconditioning. And what that is looking at where you are white, which one of these centers are white for you, you know, because everyone's going to be a little bit different. And learning how in the process of growing up and going to school and learning from our parents, learning from TV, in that process, we absorb and amplify where we are open. And we take on the beliefs of people around us. And it's a very intense process to look at that and to unplug and to allow yourself the time and the freedom to find out what is really truth for you. How do you operate that really feels good for your design? And how do you move away from those influences so you can really, truly be satisfied in your life? And I do think it's quite possible that Doreen woke up and she was not herself as an author and channeling and being this angel channeler. And you can see even Hay House now has groomed people to look like her and be a money maker and be a golden cow. And so on some level, they made her out to be something she wasn't, and she didn't realize that she was giving away her identity and she was giving away her own personal thought process. And so it created this emotional reaction where she leapt into something new, looking for love and trying to find out who she is and who she was, only to find herself in a lower, you know, in a frequency where, again, she has an even less of an opportunity to find her own way of thinking. So one thing you have to understand is this shadow of having no individual circuits, no circuitry that's individualized, is that you don't know who you are in the tribe. And the tribe is really, you can imagine, right? If you know human design or not, tribal circuitry has to do with the family, the country, the religion, anything that's very group oriented, that has a set of rules that people need to belong to and follow. And tribal rule means that you must sacrifice the individual for the good of the tribe. So many people who are individual, they feel super uncomfortable in a tribe. They need to find their own way. They need to empower their own voice. And most of them need to break out of tribes so that they can really self-actualize. Well, if you have no individual circuitry, then you don't really know who you are in the context of the group. And then with Doreen Virtue, she has that amplified to the highest degree because she has a completely open identity center. Now, the gift in this was that she is able to channel all of this really wonderful information and provide it for people. And she was a huge gift in doing that. But it's very confusing if you don't know who you are, because you don't know what information is yours, what is the outside world, what is good information, what isn't. With an open head and an open G center, you can see how she could get completely confused on who she is and what thoughts are correct, what thoughts are the right thought. And so because she doesn't know how to think for herself, there's a confusion with that open head. She has to give it over to the tribal thought and the tribal rule. And because she never fully deconditioned, she never really got through the Christian identity. And so that conditioning was pushing her to need love and recognition through the higher expression of Christian tribal rule. And so that is why we do not recognize her, because when she is in a different environment, she takes on all of the energy, all of the identity of those people in that particular tribe. But again, for her, I do believe that it was a spiral upwards, because I do believe we were all moving up in new directions on the spiral. But this is going to be quite a process for her to unplug and find her identity if she does in this lifetime. So this is really interesting. I encourage you all to go a little bit deeper in your own design, because the beauty of this is to really give us guidance into how unique each person is, the wiring of all of us, so we know how to look at our own wiring and get clear on where we are susceptible and where our shadows may be taking over and controlling our lives. So if you want to go deeper into this intel, please subscribe to our channel. And human design is a really fascinating study. We are doing a creative coaching certification for human design specialists. If you feel called and you want to go deeper and learn how to read these charts for yourself and for your clients, I will put a link below. You can email us and let us know. We're not ready to open up level 1 yet, but you can just say interested in level 1, and we can put you on a waiting list. It is an incredibly powerful study. It shows you so much about who you are. Now, obviously, there's a lot more to her chart, and we have a lot more things that we could look at. But I'm going to leave it there for today. Those are the main things I think that pop out that really affect her. So this is interesting stuff. It's very insightful, and it gives us a very intense insight on what may have happened. So if you're anything like me, it's important to look at these things on deep levels so we can learn, and we don't have to be afraid. I know so many people were telling me that, they sort of feel tweaked when they're looking at tarot cards now, or, they're looking at angels and they have her ideas that it's from the devil and it's Satan, and it's somehow tainted people's pure and beautiful experience with the angels. So I just want to let you know that she has just fully absorbed and amplified the fears of the born-again Christian. She's abdicated her thoughts. She's abdicated her entire belief system to their belief system. And she's tribal, so she needs to really fit into the tribe. And so she's designed to fall prey to these types of situations, and it doesn't mean what she's experiencing is truth. It is true for her right now, but it is not truth in the capital T. Angels are a pure source. If you are channeling or awakening to higher frequency, you do need to trust it. Something interesting just happened in our household, and that is, as I was working on this video, I asked Davidian to provide me with some of his insights. and wow, he jumped into the rabbit hole and found this chart and this experience to be super interesting as well. He has a lot of interesting insights, and what we're going to do is, we were thinking of making this one long video, but what we've decided to do is divide it up into 2 videos. And so basically you're going to get this perspective from me, and then Davidian's going to go into the next layer of her gates and her line numbers, and it is just completely fascinating. So part 2B is gonna happen right now. We're gonna actually just put it in the notes below, and we're gonna release both of these at the same time, so you can watch the next one right after watching this, and you're going to get an entirely new perspective of her chart. And I'm telling you, this shiz is intense. You can't make this stuff up. So have some fun, dive into his video, and please subscribe to our channel as well, and ring the bell for the updates. We're going to try and put out a few more videos than we have in the past, so we appreciate your feedback. Don't forget to unleash your brilliance, and we will see you in the next video.
Are you recording?
No.